Hi everyone. So I thought today I would try something new and I wanted to start a new series called Bookish Chat. And I thought the first topic of conversation should probably be the book 50 Shades of Grey, which I just recently finished reading, and I thought it'd be an interesting book to discuss. I have seen it a lot all over BookTube, and I've seen a variety of different comments on it and a variety of different opinions, and I thought I would share my own and kind of invite you guys to let me know what you thought of it if you've read it before. So first things first, this book has been out for quite a while, and I've never really had a great desire to read it. So I've seen other people reading it, and it's been around for such a long time, and obviously there was a whole bunch of buzz around it. But I never really wanted to read it just because I've heard really mediocre reviews. It sounded like it was poorly written, the characters weren't very interesting, and it was just kind of a book with just a big shock factor. So far I've only read the first book, 50 Shades of Grey. I haven't read any of the other books. And to be completely honest, when I was finishing up the first book, I had no desire to read any more of the books. Just because near the end of it, I was just not very happy with where it was going. So when I first picked it up, I had very low expectations. I knew there wasn't going to be a great work of literature or anything like that, but I thought it'd be just fun to read because I've heard so many people talking about it. Obviously, another disclaimer, I just approached this as a work of fiction. I wasn't judging the main character's lifestyle choices or anything like that. I was just purely reading the book for the entertainment factor, just to see what all the buzz was about. First thing that jumped out at me was cheesy dialogue in this book. I thought that it had potential to possibly be a more intriguing book, something that I would be really into. But I feel like a lot of the dialogue between Anastasia and Christian Grey, who was the main male character, I guess, their dialogue was sometimes a little too cheesy for my liking. Obviously, the subject of being an unhealthy or a controlling relationship comes up, and there's no denying that it's definitely a pretty unhealthy relationship, and it's also very controlling. But from my opinion, I didn't like it just because I'm not into those kinds of relationships myself. So as someone who's not really supportive of those sorts of relationships, it was hard for me to sort of get over that. I don't know, I just didn't like it how the main character let herself be so controlled. I wish she had more of a backbone, I guess. I wish she was willing to stand up to him and sort of, let him know when she wasn't comfortable or whether she didn't want to carry on like that, but she didn't do any of those things, so that was another problem that I had with it. Another thing that comes up in the book, which I don't think it's a spoiler, but whenever they have their email communication, she would make jokes, and then after she'd make like a snarky joke or something like that, she would be really worried that he would be mad at her for like making a joke, and I thought it was just really silly and almost pathetic to a point. Like, after every single time she'd make a joke, which I think she did it quite a few times, she would just be like, oh my gosh, is he gonna be mad at me now? Like, oh my goodness, like what's gonna happen next? I don't know, I just feel like if you're with somebody and you have a partner, you shouldn't be afraid of them in any sort of way. I felt like that was just, I didn't like that. Like, as a person in a relationship, you shouldn't feel afraid of making a joke and the other person like getting mad at you and you being like afraid of them getting mad at you. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a healthy thing to deal with. But like I mentioned earlier, this book doesn't really fall into those sorts of expectations that we have for a normal, healthy relationship. Another thing that I found kind of annoying about this book was how Anastasia would always think thoughts in her mind, and then she'd always have like, oh, my inner goddess was rejoicing. I mean, I can't remember if she said that exactly, but things along those lines. It just became so annoying. Like, stop saying your inner goddess did this or that. Like, just knock it off. It's not necessary. It just, I don't know. It just became, first couple of times, yeah, sure, it was cute. But after like the 100th time she said that, I thought, okay, that's enough. enough's enough and you've definitely pushed the enough limit. Finally, another thing. At first I enjoyed the book and I thought it was entertaining when I first picked it up, but the more I read it, the less kind of interested I became. In my opinion, it was like 70% sex scenes and 30% just bad dialogue. And the first couple of times there are sex scenes, I was like, it is kind of shocking. Just because I don't really know books that have sex scenes in them, so it was kind of shocking. But honestly, after like, I'm gonna exaggerate significantly, but after like the 10th time there's a sex scene, you become so desensitized to it, you just don't feel as much of a shock factor, and by the end of the book, nothing could pretty much surprise me. Like, throw anything at me in this book, and I'm not gonna be shocked. I'm not gonna be surprised. I'm just gonna like be yawning as I'm reading it, because just having so many sex scenes throughout the book is just making you care about them less and less. Like maybe if they only had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 sex scenes, they're like the biggest deal of all, but in this book there was just too much of that. And I mean, obviously that's the kind of book it's supposed to be, but I just think that if the author probably didn't have as many sex scenes, then there would be more of a shock factor. Near the end, I was getting bored with it. Another thing is, near the end of the book, there was potential for the author to turn the story into a more positive outcome, and I say that as someone who, you know, obviously was hoping for the character, for Anastasia to come to her senses and sort of like get out of that whole situation, and the author built up the sort of potential where she could like leave Christian Grey, and like, because she can't do the whole BDSM thing. So obviously, since there's 2 other books, they stay together. So it's not a spoiler, I guess, in any way. But I just felt like, had the author decided to stop it at the first book and to have Anastasia decide not to go back to Christian Grey, I feel like that would have been a really good message to send, that you can be strong enough to stand up to that sort of relationship and walk away from it if you're not entirely comfortable, especially if your partner is not willing to meet you halfway to where you're comfortable and he's comfortable. So that was my big spiel about 50 Shades of Grey, the first book, and I still don't know if I will read the other 2 books. I probably won't, just because there's so many other books that I'm more interested in reading. But I don't regret reading this book. I mean, now I know what it's all about, what all the fuss is about, and it's entertaining enough. Please let me know if you've read it, or if you haven't, please tell me why. And also, please let me know if you've read the other 2 books and whether I should read those or not. I still have mixed feelings about that. And also share your thoughts about the books, what you thought of it, what you liked, what you didn't like. And let me know if you agreed or disagreed with any of the points that I made in the video. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.